What's going on YouTube? Aaron here, and in today's video we are going to be diving into a fairly old case from 1985. I stumbled across this story on the Unresolved Mysteries subreddit. I will link it down below if you want to follow along or look into it further yourself. But this took place in 1985. The title says, in 1985, a 14-year-old girl disappeared after leaving her friend's Kansas City, Missouri home. Then, nearly 10 years later, her mother began receiving threatening phone calls stating that they had her daughter. And so, of course, I read that and immediately thought, what better thing to do than make a video for the YouTube channel and just read through this. I also used to live in Kansas City, so I can maybe provide some different maps and locations and kind of showcase the area. But let's just go ahead and read through this. Like I said, it's linked down below, and then at the end we can maybe talk about it a little bit more. But at the very least, this is a very interesting story, so maybe treat this video as kind of a video podcast and just listen in, because it's kind of a wild one. Also, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. It's free, and almost 70% of the people that watch my videos as of right now have not hit subscribe. So I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Help me do that. The details of Jody Ledkins' life are rather sparse. From reports, it was clear that she came from an unstable home and that she would run away frequently, eventually landing in a juvenile probation program. Jody and her family moved 4 different times before her 14th birthday, eventually settling in Kansas City, Missouri. By 1981, her parents had divorced, and it wasn't long before her mother remarried, but that also ended in divorce. Then, in 1985, Jody and her mother seemed to be in an okay place, and the relationship was strengthening. While there is more information about Jody's disappearance than her life as a whole, this is what we know leading up to Jody's disappearance. So, had been known to run away, kind of came from a broken family, parents divorced, mom remarried, divorced again, somewhat of an unstable, upbringing. So that takes us to May 23rd, 1985. Jody skipped school with a friend, which was common for Jody. She had gotten in trouble in the past for skipping school. Actually, in 1984, she pushed a security guard, which resulted in her being assigned a juvenile probation officer. Instead, Jody spent the day and evening with her friend, Melissa Foscroft, at Melissa's home, located near East 14th Street and Winchester Avenue. Okay, guys, so this is the intersection of Winchester and 14th Street in East Kansas City, Missouri. Like I said, I used to live in Kansas City. I didn't live in this area. I drove through this area a couple of times. This is the actual house, apparently, that was tied to the friend of Jody, who, when they were skipping school, this is supposedly the area that they were at, the 6839 14th Street address. I'm not super familiar with this area. I know that there's the 18th and Vine Jazz District that is relatively close to here, east of downtown. That would be over here on East 18th Street. This is much further east of there. So I'm not super familiar with that area, but if you're familiar with Kansas City, this is kind of the area that they were supposedly at during the day when they were skipping school. This is kind of the main downtown core. In relation to the football stadium, this is the area that, like I said, I've gone through this area several times going to football games and baseball games, but not familiar with the area overall. I would say this area is usually a bit more run down depending on the block. That's where she was at, and that's where she was supposed to be at the very least on the day they were skipping school. Later that evening, Jody and Melissa leave her boyfriend's home and head back to Melissa's home on foot. By 10 p.m., Jody calls her mother asking for a ride. That evening, Karen did not have a car and was unable to pick Jody up. Jody told her mother that she'd find a ride home with a friend. Not long after the phone call with her mother, Jody leaves Melissa's home. Jody was last seen walking northbound on Winchester Avenue and 14th Street. She did not have any extra clothing or money with her. When Melissa spoke to investigators, she was under the impression that Jody was heading back to her boyfriend's house. Okay, so if Jody did leave Melissa's house here on 14th and Winchester and head northbound supposedly to her boyfriend's house, that is apparently what she last did, according to Melissa. At least that's what she told the investigators. She would have been walking on this street, and like we just said, it's not very far. It's all kind of residential. There's a few little businesses throughout. Not sure what this would have looked like in 1985, but apparently this is kind of the route that she was last seen on that night. Okay, so that was May 23rd, 1985. The next morning, May 24th, Karen, the mother, realizes her daughter never returned home and contacted Jody's deputy juvenile officer to report her missing. When the juvenile officer learned of Jody's disappearance, she suggested to Karen that Jody may have been upset about something and that she should just give her some time and the weekend to cool off. The juvenile officer did prepare 2 warrants for Jody, citing her as an endangered juvenile who should be taken into police custody if found. I think that's a little weird. She, prepared those 2 warrants saying that she was an endangered juvenile, yet she told the mom to just, let her cool off for the weekend. Don't worry about it. I mean, I don't know the phone call that happened, but you would think that they would be like, oh my gosh, yeah, we need to find out where she's at. The advice from the juvenile officer would ultimately derail the entire case. Ooh, the first 48 hours when a person goes missing are the most essential. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Obviously, this Jody girl had a history of running away. So I can see why maybe the officer was thinking she's probably with a friend, those kinds of things. But if her friend who was with her the night before said, yeah, I'm not with her, who else would she have been with if she's not with her boyfriend, whoever she could have been with, if they were able to provide that information to, say we're not with her, then yeah, those first 48 hours are crucial. So yeah, anyways, 2 years later, while Karen was having a conversation with Jody's caseworker, it was discovered that Jody was never reported missing to the police. This conversation occurred after the warrant was canceled by the courts in July 1986. 3 years later, in 1989, Jody's juvenile officer receives a letter from an individual claiming to be Jody. The letter states that she is okay, but doesn't explain why Jody left. When the handwriting is compared to a previous letter Jody wrote, Karen is uncertain if the handwriting matches that of her daughter. In 1993, Karen starts getting bizarre and threatening phone calls where the caller would demand money in exchange for Jody. On one occasion, the caller stated, "If we don't get the money, your daughter will be sent to you in pieces." These phone calls would last for 2 years. So from 93 to 95, which was exactly 10 years after she went missing, she was getting these phone calls. Luckily, Karen was able to record all of these calls and report them to the police. While police were able to make transcripts and triangulate the location of the phone calls to a payphone in Kansas City, the caller was never identified. By August of that year, the case would be reclassified as a probable homicide. So that's good that they at least brought it back to a serious level of potential homicide. You've got people calling the parents 10 years later, claiming that they have her, claiming that, they will give her back if money is exchanged. Very weird stuff. Obviously also super weird to joke 10 years later about something like this. I feel like to bring up something that's 10 years old, it's like you must know something about this, right? I feel like the general public at that point would have moved on from this story. And so I'm glad they at least took these phone calls seriously. In 1997, 2 prison inmates claimed they had information regarding Jody's disappearance. This information brought police to the Mississippi River because the tip implied that the killer would have stashed her body in a car and then drove it into the river. However, the search was unsuccessful. They must have had more of a lead or more of a reason to search in a specific area for that search to be unsuccessful, because there's a lot of river to search, like I said, in that area. So the article then says where the case stands today. It says Karen Stratton now lives in Arkansas, but visits Kansas City a few times a year to search for her daughter. If you have any information regarding Jody Ledkins' case, please contact the Kansas City Police Department at 816-234-5140. Mind-boggling, right? I mean, the mom going back, we're talking about a case that's close to 40 years old now, and the mom's going back a couple times a year to keep searching for her daughter. That is absolutely heartbreaking. So this is the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department's website showing an age-progressed photo of what Jody Ledkins could look like today in her 40s. So this is obviously the photo of her that they had access to, and then this is actually a really good age progression. Sometimes the facial features don't line up correctly. The nose looks really good here. Obviously the face shape, even like the wrinkles. She had like some dimples and kind of wrinkles in her smile. They did a really good job with this. Even the shoulders. Look at the look at the angle of the shoulders. Obviously, this is just, they're getting better and better at some of these age progressed photos. Some of the old cases from the 80s that show age progression photos from like the 60s look really bad, but they're getting really good with some of these. But yeah, this is what she could look like today. Yeah, like I said, if you have any information, the number will be down below, but I just wanted to share this story and let me know what you guys think down below. It's a strange one. And I also heard that over the years, they've only gotten 2 tips total on this entire thing. Now, I don't know if they're counting the inmates. These are probably actual tips that were called in. They probably had leads and different things of that nature that they followed up on based on, the progression of the case. But as far as called in tips, they've only received 2, which just goes to show how much of a mystery this whole story is. So anyways, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more videos and live streams. We do both of those things here on this channel. We follow missing people cases. We follow true crime cases, both old and new. And like I said, I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I can't do that without your help. So hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.